God, thank you for these people, and thank you for allowing us to go through your word. And we just pray that as we go through your word, that your Spirit would guide us into understanding, that we would take from the text which you would have us take, that we would come to understand it in its context, and that we would leave not only knowing more, but also desiring you more. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, we are almost done with Jeremiah. We are at the tail end of Jeremiah, and so I don't want to spend too much on context. We're going to hopefully get through like chapter 48 if we can. Maybe we can just have one person do a quick general context of Jeremiah, and then we'll just kind of talk through the last few chapters.
So Jeremiah is a prophet who is ministering at the time period that the southern kingdom of Judah is about to be destroyed. The northern kingdom fell about 150 years earlier. They have been taken off into exile by the Assyrians, but the Assyrians are kind of out of the picture now. The Babylonians are the big bads. And they have been sent by God to wage judgment on Judah to take them into captivity. A few chapters ago, we did see Jerusalem destroyed, right? To where I believe at this point the temple is still standing, but the rest of the city, like the walls have been torn down, the people have been vacated. Jeremiah, is he already living down in Egypt? I'm pretty sure they took him down.
No, they are.
They basically ended like on that happening.
Okay. So that's currently where we're at.
Yeah.
Oh, so basically, there was a remnant of people who remained in like Jerusalem, right? Jeremiah was allowed to remain there probably because like his message was almost like pro-Babylonian, because he'd been saying just surrender to the Babylonians. The Babylonians were like, hey, we kind of like this guy, and so they allowed Jeremiah to choose whether he went off to Babylon or stayed. Yeah. He chose to stay, but then there was this whole set of circumstances where the guy who was left in charge in Judah got murdered. He could have avoided it, but he didn't. And then the people who remained have decided to like flee, and they're like heading down to Egypt.
Yeah, they're in fear of the Babylonians and what they're going to do.
And then God's already told them, don't do this. It's not going to end well for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to judge Egypt, and you're going to get caught up in it if you go.
Yeah, basically the thing that you're fearing of and running from is going to just happen to you in Egypt. And we talked about how like this is kind of the point where it's like now you really understand that God isn't really just sending them into exile, but they themselves are choosing to go into exile. And that's shown by the fact that they're choosing to walk into Egypt, which is both physically but also like figuratively throughout Scripture. Like going into Egypt just represents going into slavery. That's pretty much the context we're at right now.
And one thing I just want to highlight, this is not going to hopefully take too long, but I've been thinking about this because in my personal reading I've been in Galatians.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight the New Testament relevance to this, right? Just so you remember that the stuff that's being established here is relevant to what we believe nowadays, right? It's not just like, what does the Jewish people, 1,500 or 2,500 years ago have to deal with us? It's very relevant, right? Because throughout the Torah, right, it makes it clear that the ultimate punishment for disobedience is exile and death, right? And really those are the same thing, right? To where basically there's both an individual and a communal punishment, right? On an individual level, the greatest thing you can experience is death, right? On a communal level, like the nation, the greatest thing you can experience is death. But obviously, since a nation is not, a physical being, that death is accomplished through exile, right? Displacement so that it is dead, it is no longer a living nation, right? And so I just want to highlight that because throughout the Old Testament, you have the idea that exile and death are basically like equal sentences. Because like, I'll explain why this is relevant to the New Testament in a second, but in the ancient world, to give somebody a punishment of banishment or exile was basically to sentence them to death, right? Like for us nowadays, if you get banished somewhere, you're just like, I guess I'll build a life somewhere else. Whereas like, no, like in the ancient world, if you get banished, you're being cut off from everybody you know and love, and you're usually being sent to like a desolate place where you will either be a slave or you will die, right? And so to be exiled is to die. The reason that's relevant is because like, especially like in Galatians or like to Paul, he's going to make a big deal out of the fact that the natural end of the law or the Torah is death. And that's because basically humans prove themselves incapable of actually walking in full obedience to God. And that's why, in the end, they're exiled and they're killed, right? And so that's why Jesus came to deliver, like he became the curse and took the curse of death and exile upon himself so that he can deliver us and give us life. And that's what's true on an individual and communal level, right? I just want to highlight that because this is relevant. Like, if you're wondering why the Bible spends so much time talking about the exile, it's because it's emphasizing the fact that this is the natural end of really the Torah, right? God gave this amazing gift called the law, but no matter how hard Israel tried to obey it, I don't know if they really tried that hard, but no matter how long God gave them, they just continued to disobey it more and more to where God had no choice but to exile them and kill them, right? Hand them over to death. Hey, Yubi. We're not playing with that during Bible study. Anyways, that's why it's kind of relevant. I just want to highlight that, but we can jump into the text itself.
That's good, and we'll talk more about that as well in these chapters, because a lot of things you specifically said about like the killing of like the nations, so that's going to be brought up again.
Yeah.
But is there anything else anyone wanted to like bring up before we hopped in? Okay, well, we can go ahead and hop in then. The word that came to Jeremiah for all the Jews living in the land of Egypt, those who were living in Migdol, Tapanes, Memphis, and the land of Pathros, saying, Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, You yourselves have seen all the evil which I have brought on Jerusalem, and all the cities of Judah. And behold, this day they are but a waste place, and no one lives in them because of their evil which they did, so as to provoke me to anger, by continuing to burn incense, and to serve other gods whom they had not known, neither they, you, nor your fathers. Yet I have sent you all my slaves the prophets, rising up early and sending, saying, Oh, do not do this abominable thing which I hate. But they did not listen, or incline their ears to turn from their evil, so as to not burn incense to other gods. Therefore my wrath and my anger were poured out, and burned in the cities of Judah, and in the streets of Jerusalem. So they have become a waste place and a desolation as it is this day. So now, thus says Yahweh, the God of hosts, the God of Israel, Why are you doing great evil against yourselves, so as to cut off from you man and woman, infant and nursing baby from among Judah, leaving yourselves without remnants, provoking me to anger with the works of your hands, burning incense to other gods in the land of Egypt, where you were entering to sojourn, so that you might be cut off, become an imprecation and a reproach among all the nations of the earth. Have you forgotten the evil of your fathers, the evil of the kings of Judah, and the evil of their wives, your own evil, and the evil of your wives, which they did in the land of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? But they have not become contrite even to this day, nor have they feared, nor walked in my law or my statutes, which I have put before you and before your fathers. Therefore, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, Behold, I am going to set my face against you for your evil demise, even to cut off all Judah. And I will take away the remnant of Judah, who have set their face on entering the land of Egypt to sojourn there, and they will all meet their end in the land of Egypt. They will fall by the sword, and meet their end by famine. Both small and great will die by the sword and famine. And they will become a curse, an object of horror, an imprecation, and a reproach. We'll stop there. So, what happens there?
People of Judah just can't get together. God keeps on telling them stuff to do, and they...
Yeah, so what is the first thing he starts off saying? So he's talking to the Jews in Egypt, but he's not talking about them. But what does he say?
Well, don't they have evidence? Don't they know about God and his way?
Well, I guess actually, first thing, so he says, You yourselves have seen all the evil that I have brought on Jerusalem. What is he referring to?
So you're talking about the destruction of the city.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He says, Y'all saw what I did to the people who didn't obey me before. Right? And like, this isn't that long ago, right? We're talking like years, if not months earlier, right? He's like,
Yeah.
Y'all saw what I did. He's like, I warned them, and I warned them, and I sent my slaves, the prophets, and they rose up early in the morning to tell you to repent. They didn't repent, they got destroyed. So why are you still walking in disobedience. It's like this kind of ties into what we were talking about last week. How it's like God is like these are the nails in the coffin, to where it's just showing why God's having to do this. Like whenever people talk about like the God of Israel being like some big meanie butt or something like that, it's like just read the text. Like He is giving them chance after chance, yet they continue to like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, as we talked about last week, the way the text presented, just the way the text presented things, it really seemed like God was ready to end the exile here, even almost before it started.
Yeah.
But yet, even then, like they were still choosing to like run away from Him.
Yeah.
Quite literally in this case.
Yeah.
So He says, you guys have seen like at this point, what was a warning before now has become a reality, and now He's saying you guys have seen it happen. Like you can no longer say that it's just God's, He's just talk. They've actually seen the end of what's happened. And so again He asks like, why are y'all continuing to disobey? And then where does He go from there? Or what does He accuse them of actually? Because He actually, I would say He says some interesting stuff here. Like what does He accuse them of? Provoking Him to anger with?
Mostly
He
idolatry.
accuses burning
Yeah.
incense and serving other gods.
Yeah. I mean, it's not anything new,
See,
but
it's just the primary thing in verses 2 and 3, and I believe he's going to get to the whole escape to Egypt thing later.
yeah. Well, we've already talked about how like they planned to go to Egypt to escape the Babylonians. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, no, and it says the word came in verse 1. It says the word that came to Jeremiah for all the Jews living in the land of Egypt, those living in such and such city. So by that, I'm assuming they're already there.
Yeah. I believe we ended last week with like them, like God basically told them like don't do it, and they said they were going to.
And they're like, "You liar!"
So this
God
is
would
like
never say not to do this, and they did it anyway.
Yeah, so this could be like a small jump forward in time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was interesting, like the fact that it's not just recalling like a past idolatry about burning incense, but it's like they're still burning incense to other gods like to this day.
Well, and I think that also just makes sense because we have to remember how like ingrained religious practice was into like the culture at that time.
Yeah.
To where the Bible doesn't it doesn't have to outright tell us, oh, by the way, they're offering incense to other gods. The fact that they're not walking in obedience to Yahweh would suggest to us that they are probably showing some sort of devotion to some other god, right? Because like they're not like nowadays like atheism is like a very common trend. That was not like a big thing back then. I'm sure there was like some people who were like, yeah, we don't believe in God, but like that wasn't a thing. And even if you believed it, you would still probably go about the religious practices.
Probably.
And so if they're not giving Yahweh his like the devotion he deserves, the implication would be that they're giving it to somebody else, right? It's not that they're just like, it's kind of like if a guy is like married, but he's just like not giving his wife the attention she deserves. In all likelihood, he's probably not just being celibate. Like his devotion's probably somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like
that's fair. Yeah.
Like it's like the wife's not just gonna be like, I guess he's just not attracted to me. Like she's probably gonna be like, can I check your text messages? Like it's like there's something underlying there, and so
that's true.
That's one thing that we just have to remember. It's like that's behind the scenes of all of this, to where even whenever God is not explicitly calling them out, like if they're not being faithful, they're probably being unfaithful. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's true. I guess also another thing that I thought was interesting, which we could talk about in a little bit as well, because to me I see like calling back to Genesis, but it might be a stretch, but do y'all see anything in verse 9 that like kind of stands out as far as like audience, like people he's addressing? I don't know if that question is worded right, but
you've forgotten the evil of your fathers, the evil of the kings of Judah, the evil of their wives, your own people, and the evil of your wives. Or are you just talking about the fact that it brings up you and your wife?
The fact that it like mentions wives all of a sudden, like, and it mentions it twice in this case, but
are you thinking of like Noah and the flood and stuff? Or
Well, as later on is gonna show, to me it reads like Jacob and was it Rachel?
Uh-huh.
With like, is it Rachel who had the hidden idols?
Oh yes, yeah.
How like she took them with her when they went back from,
Uh-huh.
I guess not really Jacob's exile, but he.
Well, yeah, I mean that it is.
As we previously discussed, it is like Jacob goes into exile to the land that he goes to,
Yeah.
and then he returns. He returns back, and there's like certain events that happen like along the way in both that
Yeah.
kind of seem to mirror this exile in some ways.
Okay.
But like I think it's on the way back, right?
Yeah.
When they
I'll flip to the
discover.
passage.
Wait,
Okay.
you also mentioning like idols and house gods and all. They all mentioned, I believe, Micah, right? And his house gods.
Yeah, Micah and Judges.
Micah,
Yeah,
something.
that was a story where like
I don't know if it's familiar, but it just reminded what y'all talking about, like idols and house gods, kind of reminded me of that.
yeah. That one is also interesting. I don't know if it ties in as much to this specifically, because that story to me read more as like people who had good intentions but didn't have the right guidance. Like they were, it took doing what is right in their own eyes to not being evil, but like were doing it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Just, they weren't going to Shiloh or it's like the tabernacle or wherever to worship. They were doing it at home,
Yeah.
so they weren't following Torah.
So in the context of the story he's talking about, Genesis 31, I'll read it,
Okay.
like just so that we know the context. Basically, Jacob, because remember he stole Esau's birthright and blessing,
Yeah.
and as a result he had to like flee, and he went into a self-imposed exile, to where he went up to be with his uncle Laban, where he kind of met his own match, because Jacob's known for being deceptive, and Laban is also deceptive. And so, long story short, because of Laban's treachery and stuff, Jacob ends up having 4 different wives, which might originally sound like a dream come true, but it is not a dream come true. It is a mess from the beginning. But Jacob basically, he's returning back, and he ends up leaving Laban very quickly. Like, he was only supposed to be there for a short while, but Laban tricked him into being there for 20 years, right? And so finally, things get so intense that he says, okay, we're just going to sneak away in the middle of the night, right? So they leave, Laban starts chasing after him, and Laban finally catches up with Jacob and like his whole family and stuff. And Laban says, you have indeed gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house, like to return to Isaac. But why did you steal my gods? The implication would be that Laban was not a faithful follower of Yahweh, right? He worshipped pagan gods. And he's accusing Jacob and his family of stealing some of the gods. Jacob did not know this, though. Keep in mind, at this point, Jacob has not been a super faithful person either, but it does seem like maybe he wasn't a huge participant in pagan stuff. But Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, because I said, lest you take your daughters from me by force. The one with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, recognize that what is yours among my belongings and take it for yourself. But Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. And so basically Laban ends up searching, and he finds, like Rachel basically comes up with an excuse. She hides the gods like underneath her, like where she's sitting. And she says, oh, my father, I would love to rise up, but the time of women is upon me. Right? The idea that she's like on her period. And since at that time, it's like, that's a big, like, you don't touch a woman during that time because it makes you unclean. The dad's like, all right, just stay seated. It's fine. We're okay. And he just moves along. But Rachel was the one who had stolen the gods. And I only noticed this recently, but what's interesting about that story also is the fact that Jacob says, the one with whom you find your gods shall not live. Right? Technically, Laban never found the gods with Rachel. But later on, Jacob does find the gods, and he takes them, he like buries them under a tree. But sure enough, a little bit later on in the story, Rachel does die, pretty much as soon as they get back into the land, because she dies giving birth to Benjamin, the final son, which I just think is interesting. It's like he said, like Jacob is almost functioning like a prophet, to where it's like whoever has this idol will die, but it just so happens that the one who has the idol is like the wife that he loves most dearly, which also highlights the fact that maybe all because you're attracted to somebody doesn't mean that they're a decent person. Anyways, long story short, that's the story you're alluding to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? And so the idea of like, the sins of the person and their wife. I thought you were referring to like with the flood.
Oh.
Because the whole idea is like Genesis 6 begins by highlighting the sons of God going into the daughters of men, the whole Nephilim stuff. But then whenever you get to like God giving the commands to like Noah and his children to get on the ark, it's take you and your wife and your sons and their wives and go into the ark.
Oh, I
And,
see.
and it repeats that phrase a bunch to where it's like, oh, and then Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives were on the ark. And then Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives left the ark. To where, like, I thought that's what you were getting at.
Oh, I see.
But
I guess that makes sense in the arc story because of like all like the pairs of everything. But yeah, and I don't know if that is like a reference at all here, just because again, in my head I've just noticed a couple things with this narrative where like there are some parallels with like Jacob's exile. But as like I said, as we'll read on, we'll actually get dialogue from like the men and their wives and stuff, and so we can talk more about it there.
Quick question: Are these Hebrew wives, or is there a chance that they're marrying foreigners?
Well, I guess we don't know that, but historically speaking, I mean,
Based on the way they're behaving, I would assume yes.
historically speaking, the Jews had the Israelites haven't been the best about like not intermarrying, and precisely the main reason is because of the fact that they usually end up, they.
Because that's what I'm thinking. Because I know they're told many times, do not marry women from other nations because they bring in their gods.
That's the exact reason. And God says repeatedly, He's like, don't date Canaanite women because they will drag you to go worship their other gods. And lo and behold, that's what happens.
Yeah.
yeah, we're probably spending a little too much time on the one point, but I think that the general point of the verse is God pointing out that the sin was all encapsulating, right?
Mhm.
Like normally it's like usually most of the blame falls on just like the kings. But he's pointing out that this exile stuff is not just happening because of the kings. Everybody is in sin, right? It's the kings, the wives, like their own evil, the evil of their wives. Like he's pointing out all of y'all are guilty.
Yeah. That would definitely that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Anything else Joe wanted to comment on in that? So we read through. What was it? 13?
I think it was verse 15.
Yeah, 13.
So he basically just says, I'm going to do to you what I did to them,
Mm.
right? If I was willing to destroy Jerusalem, which is my pride and joy, you think that I will spare Egypt, which I've already destroyed before? It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
he's like, okay, you think that you're safe from me there? Okay, well, I'll remind you that I gave birth to your nation by destroying that place, so
They're running from the human threats, but not the actual
Yeah.
one they should be scared of.
yeah, fear not the one who can kill your body, fear the one who can kill your body and soul, that has to get into hell.
Yeah. Okay, well, we can go ahead and read on. So there will be no one who escapes, or any survivors for the remnant of Judah, who have entered the land of Egypt to sojourn there, and then to return to the land of Judah, to which they are longing to return to live. For none will return, except a few who escape. Then all the men who knew that their wives were burning incense to other gods, along with all the women who were standing by, as a large assembly, including all the people who were living in Pathros in the land of Egypt, answered to Jeremiah, saying, As for the message that you have spoken to us in the name of Yahweh, we are not going to listen to you, but rather we will certainly carry out every word that has proceeded from our mouths, by burning incense to the Queen of Heaven, and pouring out drink offerings to her, just as we ourselves, our fathers, our kings, and our princes did in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then we had plenty of food, and were well off, and saw no evil. But since we stopped burning incense to the Queen of Heaven and pouring out drink offerings to her, we have lacked everything, and have met our end by the sword and by famine. And, said the women, when we are burning incense to the Queen of Heaven, and were pouring out drink offerings to her, was it without our husbands that we made for her sacrificial cakes in her image and poured out drink offerings to her? Then Jeremiah said to all the people, to the men and women, even to all the people who were answering him with such a word, saying, As for the smoking sacrifices that you offered in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, you and your fathers, your kings and your princes, and all the people of this land, did not Yahweh remember them, and did not all this come upon his heart? So Yahweh was no longer able to bear it, because of the evil of your deeds, because of the abominations which you have done. Thus your land has become a waste place, an object of horror and an imprecation, without an inhabitant as it is this day. Because you have burned incense, and have sinned against Yahweh, and have not listened to the voice of Yahweh, or walked in his law, his statutes, or his testimonies, therefore this evil has befallen you, as it has this day. We'll stop there. Okay, so
One kind of thing I noticed is that I'm sure some of us have done it in our lives before, but essentially what the people of Judah are saying is like, look, we understand this is what God says, but you know what? We're going to do things our own way. And that's just kind of like a caution to all of us, I guess. It's like when we read Scripture and we see something in Scripture that says don't do this, or we hear God saying, you know, don't do this. Well, obviously, don't do it. Easier said than done, but essentially that's the premise of what's going on here.
yeah, so I guess it kind of helps that we just went through like the first few verses of Deuteronomy, but or maybe it's just me, but does the language here kind of remind y'all of anything from like the Torah?
Deuteronomy 32.
Well, I guess I just
Are you
mean
talking
like,
about where it says Yahweh was no longer able to bear it or something like
well, that
Oh.
kind of reminded me of. I was already kind of thinking this direction, but I was like, that's kind of funny too.
that? Yeah.
I guess more so I'm thinking of like verses 18 and 19. It's not like it's not necessarily like a word for word thing, but like the idea behind it to me. Does it remind y'all like?
Oh, okay, no, I get it now. So it's, and again, I might be referencing near the end of Deuteronomy here, like Deuteronomy 30 to 33. But essentially what God says near the end of Deuteronomy is, he tells Moses, tell the people, if you listen to me and obey me and follow my commandments, you will be blessed and you will prosper. If not, bad things are going to happen. You're going to get maybe not kings, he wasn't talking about kings at that point, but like nations will come in and rip you apart, essentially. So now we're kind of seeing the opposite of the first part of that covenant, right? Is when Moses said, follow Yahweh, when God spoke through Moses, and then Moses told the people, you know, follow God, good things will happen. They made that covenant, and they were witnesses against themselves. All that, essentially what they're saying is the opposite is, they're like, oh, when we're serving other gods, good things are happening, and now that we're not serving other gods, we got problems. So they've kind of flipped the script on that, which is not good.
That's true. I guess all I was really thinking of is just the idea that they're grumbling, like, and this is something that just because I do think it is significant. I don't want to necessarily spend like an hour on it, but especially considering what's going on right now, which is that they're literally going back into Egypt and just everything that comes along with that. They're basically just they're to me what this reminds me of is when they first leave Egypt after the Exodus, and they're grumbling against God, saying like, we were better off in Egypt in slavery, and we came out here into the wilderness just to die, like to where we don't have food, we don't have water.
Things were better off in Egypt.
Things were better off in Egypt, and both Moses and God basically grow tired of like they're unable to bear their grumblings and their complaining. And I don't know if that's intentional here, but to me, whenever I read that, it's like it kind of seems to be the same idea, like the idea that it's another indicator, like they haven't really changed. Like they're going to go back into Egypt because that's exactly where they were at back then, and that's where they are at now.
I think there's also this truth, like like from a practical, like just application perspective, how people just get superstitious about things. Like throughout their entire history, God's been like, if you obey me, things will go well with you, and if you disobey me, things are going to go bad with you. He's made that pretty clear, and even now, he's like, the reason things are going bad with you are because you're disobeying me. Yet they say, actually, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's because we stopped giving incense to this other god. It's like it's literally just superstition. It's kind of like whenever there are people who are like, I'm sorry, I'm not a Christian because I don't think there's enough evidence supporting Jesus. But then those same people are like, the stars told me that it's going to be a good month. It's like, what? like, it's like I don't know. It's like there's like this inconsistency to where they're not willing to listen to the God who like literally, if they just listen to Jeremiah, he is explaining everything that's going on with them. They have never heard from the Queen of Heaven, right? The Queen of Heaven is just some random God that they're, you know, like, it's not a God who's interacted with them or anything, but to them, it's like, that is more real. And it's just like, that's just like, I don't know, like, that should remind us that there's a spiritual realm out there, and it's just like deceives us. Also, I just want to comment that literally these verses right here, have been the basis for so many cults. Just historically speaking, like mention of the Queen of Heaven, there are so many cults that have begun specifically because of these verses. To where they will like start and they'll be like, oh yes, well God actually. I think even Mormonism, like I think the LDS people, like I think they will usually cite these to prove, like to point out the fact that like that Heavenly Father has a wife, right? And then the same thing would be true with the World Mission Society Church of God.
Oh yeah.
What is it? The Korean one, yeah. But their whole thing, that's where they come up with the idea of Mother God. It comes from these verses. And so I just want to highlight, like, we're not supposed to be approving of these people. Like it's supposed to be laughable that they're like, oh, there's the Queen of Heaven. It's like, well, the King of Heaven's trying to talk to you and he's real. So listen to him.
Yes.
But they're just not listening.
He's trying.
That's something I was gonna say.
Well, while you're thinking of it, I'll just highlight verse 22. You kind of already talked about it, how in Deuteronomy, Moses is talking about how, like, I can't bear y'all alone. But God's like, I can bear you. But even here, verse 22, Yahweh was no longer able to bear it. Because of the evil of your deeds, because of the abominations which you have done. Like, whenever God reveals himself to Moses on Mount Sinai, he says, like the first things he says, the Lord, Yahweh, Yahweh, slow to anger and abounding in love. And the word for slow to anger, it just means, like, he's able to bear a lot. Like, the idea is, like, for us, we get annoyed very quickly, right? The moment we've sat in traffic for more than 30 seconds, we're done, right? The moment that somebody, like pokes us 3 times, we're like, I'm about to punch you, right? Whereas God says, I can bear with a lot. He's like, I am very slow to anger, and, like, like, I do get angry, but it takes a lot to get me there. Whereas even God's like, I can't bear y'all anymore. Like, and it makes sense whenever you consider the fact that it's been thousands of years. Right? I mean, we feel like it took us, 6 years to get from Judges to Jeremiah where we're at right now? But for Israel, 6 years has felt like a long time. But for Israel, it's 1,000 years. And God's been bearing with them the whole way. And he's like, I can't bear it anymore. Like, he's like, y'all are just too evil. And so I've got to judge. But that also shows the whole slow to anger, abounding in love. He will show mercy and hesed and loving kindness to thousands, but he will not leave sin unpunished. So where it's like, I will punish you eventually, but I'm not going to punish you as quickly as you deserve, right? Like, you deserve punishment the moment you committed the sin. But he's like, I will wait literally 1,000 years. And so, I don't know. That's worth highlighting. But.
I do think it's just there's definitely irony here that, like, as we've already kind of talked about, just it's kind of the superstition where, like, ironically they think that it's because of what they were doing with the other gods that had, like, that they were well off, but the whole thing is just that, like, it was precisely because of that they lost it. I think there's definitely irony there. Well,
and it's also they're taking God's grace for granted because they're like, well, no, the reason things are going bad is because we stopped giving the sacrifice to the Queen of Heaven. It was like, well, no. The issue is that the consequences of your offering the sacrifices was simply delayed because he was gracious, right? It's like,
caught up with you.
Yeah, it's like all because you stopped offering the sacrifices. Like, that's not what caused it to get bad. It was you doing the sacrifice that caused it to be bad. There was just a delay between them, because he was gracious, and it's just annoying. And then also, just to emphasize the Deuteronomy stuff again, verse 23. You have burned incense, have sinned against Yahweh, and you have not shema. You have not heard or listened to the voice of Yahweh or walked in his Torah, his statutes. I'm assuming that's like mitzvot, probably.
Probably.
You have sinned against Yahweh. You have not heard the voice of Yahweh, or walked in his Torah, his hukah, or his edut, or his truth. Oh, I like that better. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and going back to what you mentioned earlier about, like, the exile equaling death. I mean, in the Deuteronomy, it's also, I said before, your life and death. Choose life that you may live. And in this case, he's speaking. In this case, it would be like communally, communal life versus communal death. And so, like, in this case, it isn't just figurative death. It's like it is literal death. It's the death of the nation.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that most of the Bible is communal. Like, we just, over in America, we've made it all about, like, my relationship with Jesus. But, like, That's where I really like the whole the y'all Bible I've told y'all about, like where it's like it does the plural thing, just because we need that worldview. Like we need to understand God isn't like there is an individual component to the faith, but that is not emphasized very much in Scripture, right? It's there, but really it's the community that God is typically speaking to, and so yeah, the nation is gonna die. But then he says, yeah, I'll leave some people I'll leave people alive, so there's a remnant, but most of y'all are dying. And so it is a literal death of the nation, which for the people is figurative because it's exile. But some of them literally die.
Yeah. Anything else there y'all want to mention?
Have you read verse 24 yet? Or did you stop?
That's the next verse.
Okay, well, I'll just highlight it before you read it. But it says, Jeremiah said to all the people, including all the women. Like, it's like, there's an emphasis in this chapter about the women as well. And I think that's first off highlighting the universality of their sin, but also it probably is linked to the whole Queen of Heaven thing, right? They're offering worship to a female goddess. And it seems like it's a lot of the women who are responsible for this movement. I don't know if it's like early wave feminism or something going on. I have no idea. But then he says, including the women, hear the word of Yahweh. So there's this responsibility not only on the leaders in the family, but like the women too. Everybody needs to hear the word.
Well, and I feel like that's also there too, because back in those days, it was just the men who would hear from the prophets.
Yeah, well, yeah, like usually the men were the ones who were out in public and stuff like that. But all right, anyways, we can take it away.
Yeah, that, and also just as a side comment that I don't want to dwell on, but it also makes me think of like Adam and Eve, where it's like they're both present and God's like speaking, like they're both accountable for what happened. It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
We move on. Then Jeremiah said to all the people, including the women, hear the word of Yahweh, all of Judah who are in the land of Egypt. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, saying, as for you and your wives, you have spoken with your mouths and fulfilled it with your hands, saying, we will certainly perform our vows we have vowed, to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and to pour out drink offerings to her. Go ahead and establish your vows, and certainly perform your vows. Nevertheless, hear the word of Yahweh, all of Judah who are living in the land of Egypt. Behold, I have sworn by my great name, says Yahweh, never shall my name be called upon again by the mouths of any man of Judah in all the land of Egypt, saying, as Lord Yahweh lives. Behold, I am watching over them for evil and not for good, and all the men of Judah who are in the land of Egypt will meet their end, by the sword and by famine, until they are completely consumed. Those who escape the sword will return out of the land of Egypt to the land of Judah, few in number. Then all the remnant of Judah who have gone to the land of Egypt to sojourn there will know whose word will be established, mine or theirs. This will be the sign to you, declares Yahweh, that I am going to punish you in this place, so that you may know that my words will surely be established against you for evil. Thus says Yahweh, behold, I am going to give over Pharaoh Hophra, king of Egypt, to the hand of his enemies, to the hand of those who seek his life, just as I gave over Zedekiah, king of Judah, to the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, who was his enemy and was seeking his life.
Alright, so essentially to me it's like, you want to play this game, you want to do this, fine. Go worship your false god or goddess and make your vows. But I'm still going to punish you. Like, you're just kind of giving up on them at this point.
God's a gentleman. He's not going to force you into a relationship with him. He's like he's going to be like, hey, like, if you separate from me, things are going to go bad for you. But like, no, like, and I think some people, like, they look at this like a negative thing. They're like, wow, I can't believe God would punish them for not being with him. It's like, well, no, he's just being very practical. Like you could easily view this in the way of like, if you're with me, I offer you my protection. If you leave me, I'm not offering my protection. That's entirely fair, right? Like, if you're, like, if Brienne is my wife, well, then it is my duty to protect her. If she leaves me, it is no, I mean, it's like, okay, like she has chosen to leave that protection, and you can't get mad at me if you run off to another guy, and then I didn't protect you, right? And then, like, you can't run off to another guy and then expect me to pay your medical bill. Like, it's like, well, no, if you leave me for another guy, okay, you have the right to do that, but there are going to be consequences to that, right? And that's what God is communicating. He's like, okay, if you're mine, I will take care of you, and I will make you, like, you will enjoy life with me. But if you leave me, I'm just letting you know, it's going to be bad for you.
It's a rough world out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
that's basically what he's communicating here.
Yeah. That just like if you want to keep doing that, you can, but I will have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So he is like just literally like I'm not gonna be around.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like you've seen a progression here. Like when you go back to Hosea, he was ministering to the northern kingdom, and that was whenever things were beginning to get bad. And so with Hosea, you've got that whole metaphor, like he goes and marries Gomer the prostitute, and whenever she goes and resells herself into prostitution, he pursues her and he goes and buys her back. Whereas God's saying, I'm not buying you back this time. It's like I've communicated my grace to you enough, and if you want me back, all you have to do is return. But I'm not pursuing you anymore. It's like I'm gonna let you go, man. That's just how it is. Like it's sad. Like
Yeah.
especially whenever you realize how out of their league he is, right? I mean, like he is like the perfect knight in shining armor, amazing gentleman, and she is a prostitute. It's like she don't deserve him, and he's been so good to her. And he's like, okay, I mean, like I'm done pursuing you at this point. Like, and it's so sad. Like it's like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah. Another thing to mention here, just because he mentions it kind of twice, but another thing that he emphasizes is his word being established. And I partially bring that up because, especially like in the very beginning of Jeremiah, that was the whole thing, was that like everything that was happening, like everything that's happened thus far has been stuff that God has basically foretold, like in his word. And so like that kind of means, I guess it kind of means two different things. But for the people, they have God's word to look back on, and like they had that to like look at and to guide them to not like fall away from him. And now he's just kind of reasserting, like, just like before, my word was established, this was gonna happen, and so now it's gonna happen. Like now that things are gonna happen, you're gonna know that like my word's always been established.
Yeah.
And
And also there's like this element to it, like an emotional element in regards to, in the Torah, his word was established in the sense of he gave the promise, right? It's like he said, here's how I will relate to you, and it was like there was a conditional element, right? It was like, if you listen to me and love me, I will do great things for you. If you don't, then I won't. It's like to where there was this conditional element, but like his word was established. He said, I'm going to make it 100% clear where I stand. It all depends on you. But then by the time you get to Jeremiah, they have decided how they're responding. And so now his word is going to be established, but like because he is faithful to his former word, their response has dictated how he will not respond. So like now his word is established in a more like final and like harsh way. Right? Before it was like it was brimming with opportunity. It was like, okay, I've set before you life and death. Choose life that you may live. But they chose death. And so he says, well, I've established my word. And he says, all because you're unfaithful doesn't mean I'm going to be. So he says, I'm going to be faithful to the word that I said. And because you were unfaithful, that means you chose death, so you will die. And it's like that's like so sad because it's like, I don't know. Like, but it's cool because from beginning to end, he is faithful. The issue is, a faithful God to an unfaithful people results in judgment. And so,
it's true.
Like he will be faithful to his promises, whether it's good or bad for you. That's why it's like you need to respond to his promises properly. So.
Yeah. Yep. He just ends there again, saying he's going to punish them and he's going to hand over Pharaoh just as he handed over Zedekiah. Anything else I wanted to add there before we move on?
I think that we don't need to linger on it, but I just think the parallel that he's comparing Pharaoh Hophra, king of Egypt, he's putting him on the same level as Zedekiah, king of Judah. Like, once again, it's like, oh, you think that I won't do to a Pharaoh what I did to one of the kings of my own people? Like, he's like, yeah, I will do the same thing.
It's true.
Especially because, once again, whenever you think of like the big moment, whenever God like made himself known to the Jewish people or to the Israelite people, it was by humiliating a Pharaoh. And so he's like, yeah, I will do the same thing. You're running to Pharaoh for help, but I've proven that I can take Pharaohs down. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else to add? All right. Next chapter should be the short one.
Ooh, 5 whole verses.
Alright. This is the message which Jeremiah the prophet spoke to Baruch, the son of Neriah, when he had written down these words in a book at Jeremiah's dictation, in the 4th year of Jehoiakim the son of Josiah, king of Judah, saying, Thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, to you, O Baruch. You said, Oh, woe is mine, for Yahweh has added sorrow to my pain. I am weary with my sighing and have found no rest. Thus you are to say to him, Thus says Yahweh, Behold, what I have built, I am about to pull down, and what I have planted, I am about to uproot, that is, the whole land. But as for you, are you seeking great things for yourself? Do not seek them. For behold, I am going to bring calamity on all flesh, declares Yahweh. But I will give your life to you as spoil in all the places where you may go. Alrighty, what happens there?
Okay, first thing we talk about who this Baruch guy is.
Yeah, who's Baruch?
Or Baruch. Can't pronounce his name right.
Yeah, who's Baruch? We mentioned him.
Jeremiah's disciple
we
and scribe.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the one who wrote down all the stuff in the scroll that got burned, and then also the one that wrote the stuff in the second scroll. Yeah, so he tells Jeremiah to talk to Baruch, and what is Baruch saying? I guess you could say this is probably like not literally what he's saying, but in his head. But what is Baruch saying?
He's just going through it. He's like, I'm not happy with how life is right now. Like he's like, life sucks, and I'm not happy with it. Which seems like a fair thing to say at this point in history, but the way that God corrects him would suggest that maybe he was complaining a little more than he should have, like, or that maybe his heart wasn't exactly in like the right place. But
that's fair. Yeah. So how does God respond to Baruch? Verses 4 and 5.
There's gonna be some uprooting.
So in verse 4 he says, what is God saying? Because remember, this chapter, it seems to be a jump back in time.
Yeah.
So this is almost like if this book was a movie, this is a scene where there's a kind of a flashback.
Yeah.
So was that earlier? There was a verse that said it'll break down and build up.
So what is he just saying? Like, simply put, what is he saying? What is he referring to by pulling down and uprooting?
destruction and exile.
Yeah.
Like he says, like I have built what I have built. I'm about to pull down. So like I built the kingdom. I'm about to pull it back down. What I've planted, I'm about to uproot this whole land. Like the kingdom and the land, they're about to get out of here. Which isn't exactly what you would expect him to say to somebody who is already thinking that things are rough. Like Baruch's like, man, life is terrible, and God's like, and it's about to get worse. And I'm the one who's behind it, right? Which I don't know. I'll talk about it again in a second. But
yeah. So in verse 4, that's what he says, and then in verse 5, he sort of repeats. Well, I guess first, what does he ask Baruch? Somewhat rhetorically, but
are you seeking great things for yourself?
yeah, what does he mean by that?
So does that mean does he want to glorify himself like rather than glorify God? Like
Well, I mean, because it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like God's overall response is negative. It's in the same way that kind of he's responding to Jeremiah, where like he'll correct Jeremiah, but he's not like, you have not walked in faith. Like it seems like it's overall positive. But like what is he? So in verse 3, he says that he has added sorrow to my pain. I am weary with my sighing, and have found no rest. And in context of that, what do you think he's saying in verse 5? And like, what does it say about maybe where Baruch's heart's at?
Oh, so if it's like Jeremiah, it's good, but the times are bad. But you're on pretty good terms here as long as you.
Like maybe what's the source of Baruch's complaining? I don't want to spend like too much time on it.
I think he's more I think he's just a bit focused on himself.
Yeah.
Like to where I think that God is correcting him, but like you said, it's not like a harsh correction, because like he is going to say, hey, but don't worry, like, I'll give you your life. But I think that it's kind of like the equivalent of, I mean, like, because Baruch, he's in ministry, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like God saying, did you think this was going to be easy? Like, why are you here? Like, are you here to serve me or serve yourself? Right? What are you trying to get out of this? Because, like, you're ministering to a people who are not going to listen. Like, it's similar stuff that he's had to say to Jeremiah.
Mm-hmm.
Because Baruch's just like, woe is me, for Yahweh has added sorrow to my pain. I am weary with my sighing, and I found no rest. Like, he wants rest, right? And to be fair, that's a common thing for us to want, right? I mean, like, I don't think there's anybody who would raise their hand and be like, oh, I don't want rest in my life. Like, no, everybody wants that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a tendency, especially in churches, to just jump to Matthew chapter 11 and say, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, I'll give you rest. Like, we love to think that, like, all times are, like, you know, like, we love to combat that and be like, oh, well, don't worry. Like, if you come to Jesus, everything will be good. But God doesn't say that to him. He more, he could, right? Because God could offer him rest. But instead he says, why are you here, right? Like, as for you, are you seeking great things for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, no, you're here to minister to the people. I'm about to destroy the nation. If things were going good for you, that would suggest you're not ministering very well, because I'm about to destroy the people. And he says, so here's the good thing that I'll give you. You'll live. But if you're wanting more than that, I'm sorry, you're in ministry. And it's going to be rough. Like, so I feel like it's like, it's a rebuke, but also like a gentle rebuke. He's just like kind of correcting his mindset a little bit.
Yeah. He's focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah. Which I think is a really good reminder for us.
You do.
Yeah, for
it's-
sure.
Also,
Good.
it could be worse for him because there's calamity coming to all flesh except his.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so God is comforting him, but I think like just on an applicational perspective, we just have to remember, like, I don't know. I think it's so easy for us to get blinded by, like, we lose sight of why we live. Like, it's very easy for us to make life just about ourselves. Like,
Yes.
ooh, man, I didn't get enough sleep last night. I'm working too hard. I am tired. I'm not happy. It's like, why are you here? Right? We exist to live for God.
Yeah.
An example, I don't know all the context behind this, so I don't want to, like, speak beyond what I know. But I know that, like, the children's ministry at our church just recently had, like, a very intense meeting over something. I don't know enough behind it, but from what I know, I'm just going to use this as an example. I'm sure if I knew more information, I probably wouldn't be able to make this in such a blanket statement. But I think a lot of the people in the children's ministry, like the volunteers, were complaining because of how tired they were. And it's like, and like the thing is, like, they were apparently like being kind of rude to each other because of how tired they were, and like, like, you be chill. Chill. But the thing is, I think it's very easy for people to be like, oh, well, I'm tired, and therefore it's like they use that to justify not serving. Or they use that to justify being angry. Or people are like, you know, you even hear people in churches nowadays, oh, don't even talk to me if I haven't had my coffee. And it's like, well, no, why are you here? Right? It's like, did you think that following Jesus was supposed to be easy? Like, Jesus says that if you're not willing to lay down your life for him, don't even bother following. But then, like, we're over here being like, I'm sorry, I can't serve today because I didn't get my 7 hours of sleep. It's like,
Yeah.
like, okay, like, guys, like, we're not called to a life of convenience. We're called to a life of service. The cool thing for us is, as Christians, we have this, like, blessed hope that one day things are going to be great and we'll get all the rest we need for eternity. But right now, it's like, well, no, like, there are people out there who are in need and they need to be served, so go serve them. And yeah, if you only get, like, you know, if you have to sacrifice sleep and maybe a little bit of health, and that's fine. Like, I mean, the Apostle Paul's over here like, yeah, I labored night and day, and I went to jail, and I've been sick quite a bit, and life's been pretty rough, but I'm doing it for y'all. Like that's what we're supposed to be like. And I think that's kind of what God is slightly correcting Baruch on here. He's just like, hey, just remember why you're here. Like, you're not here, like, you're not like a prophet's assistant so that you can brag about being a prophet's assistant. You're a prophet's assistant because he needs you to assist him in ministering to the people. And the people are going to suffer because of their sin, and therefore, you need to suffer with them. I'm not going to have my ministers over here living in rest and luxury while they're trying, like, that would make them hypocrites, right? If, like, all the people are, like, suffering and the ministers are up there, like, in their private jets, not a good look. Which might be relevant to today as well.
Yeah.
But,
Unfortunately.
I don't know. Like, I think that's something that we need to correct ourselves about a lot, because it's very easy for us to fall into the very worldly and natural mindset of like, oh, the grass is greener on the other side. Like we start grumbling about our jobs because we didn't get the hours that we wanted, or we like it's like we should just be grateful to have a job, right? And then like we need to look for opportunities to serve people wherever we're at. Whereas very easy, it's about like, oh well, I didn't have time to go do what I wanted to do today. It's like, okay, that's fine. So, but like, why did you not get to do it? Is it because you were so busy serving other people? If so, good, it's great. But I don't know. I could do a whole long thing. Like there's a short chapter, but there are like 30 sermons you could get to from it.
Yeah, because it might be a bit different, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of stuff that Jesus talks about in Matthew 6 with like not being anxious for tomorrow. It's not one for one, but like if anything, maybe like the mindset there is it's more similar to where it's not about like just simply like, you know, everything isn't going to be sunshine and rainbows, but it is the idea of like focus on the kingdom first.
Well, and trusting God to provide.
Trusting God to provide.
Yeah, because the broader context of Matthew 6 would actually make that apply really well, because the beginning of Matthew 6 is him saying, don't be like the hypocrites who are always trying to do things for themselves, right? I mean, they can't give money to the poor without blowing a trumpet. They can't pray to God without standing on the street corners. Like, it's like, he said, don't do that. He says, when you give to the money to the poor, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Like, because he says, when you live like a hypocrite serving yourself, that is your reward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your reward will be your high reputation. Your reward will be the notoriety it gets you because of how awesome you are. But he says, if you simply serve God, your Father in heaven will reward you because he sees what is done in secret.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you don't have to be anxious, because you don't have to strive to impress man. You don't have to strive to like be in control of life. All you have to do is serve God, and he will provide you with what you need. It might not be what you think you need, right? You might not have like thousands and thousands of dollars in your savings account, but you'll have what you need. And so like that's like the source of it. It's like if you serve God and you're not serving yourself, there's no need for anxiety, because the rewards you get in heaven will be great. And so like it does all kind of tie together.
Yeah, that, and also in like end of James 4, where he talks about like not basically like not boasting in like tomorrow. He says how he says like that life is short, and he's like y'all say like tomorrow we shall do this and we shall do that. I don't remember exactly what he says, but
I always get it mixed up because Jesus says the same thing in Matthew 6. It's almost like James and Jesus were brothers. Yeah, because Jesus says like, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough worry of its own. But then James says like, you don't know what tomorrow brings. Say, Lord willing, we'll do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
But
he just says like, don't boast in like your plans and what you're gonna do. But not to like spend too much more time on that, but actually a pretty good short chapter.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? Cool.
Going back to poetry.
Oh yeah.
It's a long chapter.
Yeah, at least the chapter I think is after is short.
Yeah.
Again. That which came is the word of Yahweh to Jeremiah the prophet concerning the nations. To Egypt, concerning the military force of Pharaoh, Necho king of Egypt, which was by the Euphrates River at Carchemish, which Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon struck down in the 4th year of Jehoiakim the son of Josiah, king of Judah. Arrange the shield, enlarge shield, and draw near for the battle. Harness the horses, and mount the steeds, and take your stand with helmets on. Polish the spears, put on the scale armor. Why have I seen it? They are shattered. They are drawing back, and their mighty men are crushed, and have fled to refuge, without facing back. Terror is on every side, declares Yahweh. Let not the swift man flee, nor the mighty man escape. In the north, beside the river Euphrates, they have stumbled and fallen. Who is this that rises like the Nile, like the rivers whose waters toss about? Egypt rises like the Nile, even like the rivers whose waters toss about. And he has said, I will rise and cover that land. I will surely cause the city to perish, as well as its inhabitants. Go up, ye horses, and drive madly, ye chariots, that the mighty men may go forth. Ethiopia and Put, who seize the shield, and the Lydians, who seize and bend the bow. Indeed, that day belongs to Lord Yahweh of hosts, a day of vengeance, so as to avenge himself on his adversaries. And the sword will devour and be satiated, and drink its fill of their blood. For there will be a sacrifice to Lord Yahweh of hosts, and the land of the north by the river Euphrates. Go up to Gilead and obtain balm, O virgin daughter of Egypt. In vain you have multiplied remedies. There is no healing for you. The nations have heard of your disgrace, and the earth is full of your outcry. For one warrior has stumbled over another, and both of them have fallen down together. Okay, we'll stop there.
Starting to get into the poetry, and he's essentially saying Egypt. To Egypt.
So Egypt's going to face judgment.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
essentially Egypt's put on notice here. You're like, you can try to fight, but you're not going to be able to. And then if you go to 6 and then go to the next slide, it says the swift man will not flee, the mighty man will not escape. They'll all stumble and fall. So basically everyone in Egypt's going to be killed except for the aforementioned remnant. And then essentially keeps going send the virgin daughter to go find the balm, but there is none.
Oh, yeah.
In vain you have multiplied remedies, there's nothing for you.
Yeah.
So a lot of imagery, a lot of poetry.
And this is a famous battle that it's describing.
Oh, is it?
It's describing the Battle of Carchemish that took place in 605 BC. So it's also worth highlighting that this is going back in time again, right? So this is taking place earlier we were talking about Pharaoh Hophra of Egypt. That was Pharaoh Hophra was around the time period that Judah fell. This is about 20-ish years earlier.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
so it says the 4th year of Jehoiakim, which is,
Yeah,
I think,
no.
the same as last chapter.
This is
Yeah.
before they flee down to Egypt.
Yes.
And here essentially Egypt's just getting put on notice.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the same time period as the previous chapter with Baruch and stuff. So I'm assuming it's around the same time period whenever Baruch had because it said when he had written down the stuff and it got burned.
Oh, probably.
Right. So
Actually, it may have been before that, because wasn't it Zedekiah who burned?
maybe I was just commenting because 45 says when he had written down these words in a book at Jeremiah's dictation.
Oh,
But,
yeah, that's true.
The whole point. So this is back. This goes to the Battle of Carchemish is actually a famous battle that took place in 605 BC. It was the Pharaoh Necho against the Assyrians, and the Egyptians lost big time. And I'm pretty sure shortly afterwards, that's whenever the Assyrians came down and they took the first wave of exiles away. I believe.
Assyrians or Babylonians?
Babylonians. Oh. Yeah. Sorry. I was saying Assyrians. It's Egypt versus Babylon.
Yeah.
The Babylonians win, and then I'm pretty sure that's whenever Nebuchadnezzar comes down and they take the first wave away.
Gotcha.
Because I'm pretty sure that's when Daniel got carried away.
Oh, okay.
But
Another thing worth just, it's not another huge thing, but because we talked about it in was it, I guess, probably 2 Samuel, how sometimes there's people, authors will place stories in less of a chronological order to emphasize a point. Like how with David, we talked about how the last few chapters were all kind of stories at the end, but they weren't necessarily in chronological order.
yeah,
But it was making a point about making different points.
yeah.
And I would say here, probably should be pretty obvious, but why do you think that the author, Jeremiah here, why do you think he includes the story where he does?
Because he was just talking about how the people of Judah who go down to Egypt will be destroyed because God has power over Egypt.
Yeah.
And so now he's anyways, let's flash back to something that Jeremiah already prophesied 20 years earlier about how God would destroy Egypt, and then it happened.
Yeah.
So basically, it's almost like he saved that information for a little bit later. It's almost like they're well, what proof do you have that God has power over Egypt? He's oh, well, 20 years ago I made a prophecy that God would destroy the Egyptians, and he did. It's
Yeah.
oh. It's oh, okay. That's a good point. You ever heard of the Battle of Carchemish? Yup. It's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would agree. It's kind of the same thing there. But I just want to bring it up because it's worth highlighting that there's narrative choices being made here. So how does this chapter start off? what does God say to the Egyptians, or really, I guess technically the army of Pharaoh?
He just tells them to get their better man up because it's about to go down.
Yeah.
Like, get your horses ready, get your shields ready, get your swords ready, because I'm coming for you, and it ain't gonna end well for you.
Yep. Yeah, some of this stuff reminds me of things that we talked about in Nahum with Assyria. The whole not like the mighty men won't escape, and like the no swift man will flee, and how they'll all stumble and fall. I think we talked about that. And I guess it's just common language when it comes to like battles and the way that God was going to take down different military forces.
The main thing I want to highlight is just because we've highlighted this in regards to the whole book of Jeremiah. Chapter 8, verse 22, I argued was like one of the theme verses of all Jeremiah, right?
Yeah.
Is there any balm in Gilead? Where Jeremiah is looking at like the disease within the people of Judah themselves, like sin. And he's like, is there any cure, right? Like, is there any balm in Gilead? Like is there any medicine that could, cure the disease that's festering within us? And that's like the lingering question throughout Jeremiah. And God says, you're right, there is no balm, but I'm going to provide one. But then when you get to verse 11 here,
Yeah.
it says, he's talking to the Egyptians, go up to Gilead and obtain balm, O virgin daughter of Egypt. In vain you have multiplied remedies, there is no healing for you. So God's, he's acknowledging that there is a balm in Gilead, but you're not going to get it. It's like an irony, because earlier Jeremiah was saying, is there any balm in Gilead? And God's like, go find that balm in Gilead, Egypt. But he's saying it's not going to work for you, right? It's like,
Yeah.
even if you find the metaphorical balm in Gilead, like Jeremiah's point is that there is no human medicine that can cure this, right? And so there is no balm in Gilead, but God has a balm that he will offer, right?
Yeah.
And so
I'd say it's also like in the context of, and I think we're gonna maybe read it at the end of this chapter, but either this chapter or the next chapter, the last few verses kind of summarize a lot of also the back half, where God basically says like, I'm gonna mostly destroy you, but I won't make a complete. He says, I won't make a complete destruction of you, Judah, but I will make a complete destruction of like your enemies, the other nations.
yeah,
And so like, God will give them the balm in Gilead, but like,
not everybody else.
because they're being struck and like they're looking for balm, but like to cure their affliction, and God's like, nope, you're gonna get destroyed, but for good. And so I think there's also that too. Like, Judah's getting it bad, but in the end, like they will not die.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. What else there? Through verse 12.
So he's just
Whoa.
a Youpie, chill. Youpie, it's fine. Yeah, it's Amazon. You. Okay. It's just describing defeat. It's just describing like defeat of Egypt, and how people are going to hear about them. And like I said, Battle of Carchemish is a pretty famous defeat, and so Jeremiah's correct. I would actually argue that that's actually somewhat good evidence for just like the legitimacy of prophecy, because Jeremiah had, at that time period, they had no way of knowing that like Battle of Carchemish would be as popular as it is nowadays. Whereas
That's
he's
true.
like, he's like, the nations will hear of your disgrace.
That's true. That's true. Okay, well, we go ahead and move on. This is the message which Yahweh spoke to Jeremiah the prophet about the coming of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon to strike down the land of Egypt. Declare in Egypt, and cause it to be heard in Migdol. Cause it to be heard also in Memphis and Tahpanhes. Say, take your stand and get yourself ready, for the sword has devoured those around you. Why are your mighty ones thrown down? They do not stand, because Yahweh has thrust them down. They have repeatedly stumbled. Indeed, they have fallen one against another. Then they said, rise up, and let us return to our own people and land of our birth, away from the sword of the oppressor. They called out there, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is but a rumbling. He has let the appointed time pass by. As I live, declares the king, whose name is Yahweh of hosts, surely one shall come who looms up like Tabor among the mountains, or like Carmel by the sea. Make your baggage ready for exile. O inhabitant of the daughter of Egypt, for Memphis will become a desolation. It will be even turned into ruin and without inhabitants. Egypt is a pretty heifer, but a horsefly is coming from the north. It is coming. Also her mercenaries in her midst are like fattened calves, for even they have turned back and fled away together. They did not stand their ground. For the day of their disaster has come upon them, the time of their punishment. Its sound moves along like a serpent, for they have moved on like a military force, and come to her as woodcutters with axes. They have cut down her forest, declares Yahweh. Surely it will no longer be searched out, even though they are now more numerous than locusts, and are without number. The daughter Egypt has been put to shame, given over to the land of the people of the north. Stop there. Okay, so what happens there?
Before y'all even, sorry, have you ever seen a book packaged like this? Like, what on earth?
That's interesting.
That is, like, it was packaged in the,
What?
like, what's the purpose of that? That's just, sorry,
I may
okay.
have seen that before.
That is just so weird. Okay.
Interesting.
Sorry, that's not relevant at all. I'm just so confused at what the practical benefit of this is. Anyways, he's talking about Egypt some more.
Yeah. It's a continuation of the same stuff, but yeah. But basically, what is he saying? Like in a few words.
He's saying essentially, Egypt, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
He's basically saying,
Judgment's coming and there's nothing you can do about it.
he's saying, and I want y'all to know when y'all get destroyed, I'm the one who did it. Yeah. He's like, why are your mighty ones thrown down? They do not stand because Yahweh has thrust them down. They've repeatedly stumbled. Like, so he's like, whenever all your mighty men fall, whenever your gods are humbled before you, I want you to remember, I'm the one who declared it. It's very similar to stuff that he declared in Exodus.
Yeah.
But if anything, it's just more verbose.
It's like, how many times do they teach you this lesson, old man?
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah. Memphis will become a desolation. It will turn into ruin. Similar stuff that he's been also saying to Judah as well. In verse 20 and 21, it almost seems like he's referring to Egypt and their allies as like an offering,
Oh yeah, I can see that.
like a sacrifice.
Yeah.
A pretty heifer and fattened calves. Or that, or I guess it's just like the idea of like as a fat offering to Babylon, like
Yeah.
because Babylon's going to take them.
It's almost like a feast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a heifer that's got a bunch of like horse flies feeding on it, or just like fattened calf, like the slaughter. It's like God, Yahweh is giving them as like spoil to Babylon, to Nebuchadnezzar, which again is interesting. And then again, we get that they move on like a military force and come like woodcutters with axes. So it's like the whole cutting down the forest. And this was actually imagery that came up a lot, I think, in Isaiah. The whole like cutting down the forest as ways of like destroying or like just like, referring to like but yeah, just like the destruction of nations. So like whether it was referring to Judah or whether it was referring to like other nations, like the cedars of Lebanon. So again, just the idea of like being cut down. The daughter of Egypt has been put to shame, given over to the hand of the people of the north, and in this case, who has given them over?
God.
God has, which I still think is interesting, just because even though God has obviously made it clear He's the God of like all creation, usually the idea of like being given over to someone, like that's usually language with like God and like Israel.
Yeah.
But like in this case, it's referring to Egypt.
Well, and it's also just like such a weird thing to say. Like that's like me being like, yeah, I went over to my neighbor's house and I gave their kids a spanking. It's like, do you have the right to do that?
Yeah.
Like, it's like from the perspective of the authors of the Bible, and obviously from our perspective, we would say yes. But if the Egyptians were to hear this, they'd be like, only our gods have the power to judge us. Like, you need
Yeah.
to back off. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or I guess it's almost even like whenever a sibling's like, hey, I have the right to beat up my brother, but you don't have the right to beat up my brother. It's like,
Right, yeah, with
Yeah.
siblings, yeah. Yeah, that and also just the language of like the daughter of Egypt and like earlier the virgin daughter of Egypt. I could be wrong. I feel like I've only heard those languages specifically
Israel.
with Israel.
Yeah.
I do find that interesting.
He might be just mocking them. Like, you're so impure you don't even have a virgin. I can't like refer you to a virgin daughter.
I mean, it could be.
well, I think the intentional, like the intention behind it is to compare them to Israel, to where I think, if anything, this could be kind of like the whole Deuteronomy 32. I will make you jealous with like the Gentiles, to where it's like he's using language that he usually reserves for Israel and Judah, but he's applying it to the Egyptians. In this instance, it's judgment, to where the people of Judah, like, you know, like, at least the Egyptians are being judged, but they'd still be like, wait, hold on, huh? Like, it's like if you were, I don't know, like imagine that your parent is disciplining you, and like they've always called you like, you know, like my dad always called me like his buckaroo, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine that he was like I was currently in trouble, and he says, okay, buckaroo, you're in trouble. But then he like says, also, my buckaroo Sean's also in worse trouble. I'd be like, hold on, I'm glad. Like, the thing that would stick out to me more is not the fact that Sean's in worse trouble. It'd be the fact that my dad called Sean buckaroo. I'd be like, hold on, that's my title. Like, to where it actually is like, it's supposed to arouse some jealousy.
Yeah.
You know? To where I think that might be part of the intention there.
Yeah.
I
I also wonder, just this is like not, this is just kind of a thought that popped in my head, but also like at this time, if we're talking about like a later on event, by this point you have a remnant of Judah, like the remnant is in Egypt, and so it could be that maybe God's viewing Egypt as like also Judah, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense though, because he hasn't been referring to them that way. But
well, and because that would be later on, like that'd be like 20 years later and stuff, right? Like, because is this still?
well, he's saying like he's going to
Okay.
punish them.
Okay, I can see that.
That's what I say. I guess it depends on when, like, whether this is only talking about like what's has been done or whether it's like future.
Yeah, it seems to me that he's probably talking about the Egyptian people themselves, not the Jewish people in Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I just meant like the way that he'd be referring to the nation as a whole.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Most likely not though. But it is still interesting, just the language being used. Yeah. Any other thoughts through verse 24? Okay, we can go ahead and move on then. So maybe verse 25. Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, says, behold, I am going to punish Ammon of Thebes, and Pharaoh, and Egypt, along with her gods and her kings, even Pharaoh and those who trust in him. I shall give them into the hand of those who are seeking their lives, even into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, and into the hand of his servants. Afterwards, however, it will be dwelt in like the days of old, declares Yahweh. But as for you, O Jacob my servant, do not fear, nor be dismayed, O Israel. For behold, I am going to save you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob will return and have quiet, and be at ease, with no one making him tremble. O Jacob my servant, do not fear, declares Yahweh, for I am with you. For I will make a complete destruction of all the nations where I have banished you. Yet I will not make a complete destruction of you. But I will discipline you with justice, and by no means leave you unpunished.
Okay, so one thing that stands out to me is this language is very similar to the language you see near the end of Genesis and in No, actually, like more Exodus, Deuteronomy language, I would say, right? Maybe not so much Genesis.
Mm-hmm. What specifically?
So just the references to like, not be afraid, Jacob, my servant.
That actually reminds me more of like Isaiah,
Yeah.
where Isaiah says like, I've called you by name. You have nothing to fear. Like you are mine. It seems like that's kind of that language. Like even the exact wording, like verse 27 in particular. I'd have to go look it up, but the language seems very similar to stuff that we see in Isaiah.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that stuck out to me is actually the last verse, because he says, I will not make a complete destruction of you. I will discipline you with justice and by no means leave you unpunished. That language is directly pulled once again from Exodus 34 whenever God revealed himself to Moses.
Yeah.
Because he
I
says...
think that's where I was going
Okay.
with it. It's more like Exodus, maybe Deuteronomy language.
Yeah, because in Exodus 34 it says, he keeps hesed for thousands, who forgives iniquity, transgression, and sin, yet he will by no means leave the guilty unpunished, visiting the iniquity of fathers on children and the grandchildren to the third and fourth generations.
Yeah.
And so that language is specifically drawn from there to where he says he's a God of justice, but he doesn't leave things unpunished. So like that language is from there.
Then also, and
But
yeah, I'll get back.
and then even like the phrase like I am with you, that's also Isaiah
Yeah.
language.
And then also maybe like Joshua language, kind of in the reference where Joshua, marches through, basically what doesn't wipe out everybody. God leaves a few nations to test the Israelites, but he basically takes out like the Canaanites, Jericho,
Yeah.
because he's talking about destruction of nations that they inhabited and persecuted them in the future, right? And you
Yeah.
also see that in Exodus.
So the Isaiah 43:1. But now thus says Yahweh, your creator, O Jacob, he who formed you, O Israel. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I'll be with you. And through the rivers, they will not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be scorched, nor will the flame burn you. For I am Yahweh, your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. So it seems like very similar language. But long story short, in these verses, God says, I'm going to judge Egypt. He does at least say that eventually they will go back to normal too. He says they're going to be totally wiped out, but then they will be populated again like the days of old. But he says that in the end it's going to be worse for the nations than it is for Israel themselves. Like he says, I'm going to make an utter destruction of them, but I will save you from afar. So like even that, it's like I'm going to save you, but that doesn't mean everything's right between us. It's like I will, like he's almost like hinting at the fact that when the exile comes to an end, whenever their captivity comes to an end, the exile is not over.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you might come back from Babylon, but I don't want you to think that that means that we're good. Right? Like, there's still a reckoning that needs to take place, and there still needs to be repentance.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to save you from afar, but I'm not going to totally destroy you. Like, you will return to the land, which is just kind of cool.
Yeah. I would say that verse 28, the entirety of verse 28 is actually probably a pretty good summary of, like, the back half of a lot of the Old Testament prophets and a lot of the like the back half of the prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, and just the whole idea that God is sending them into exile and he's punishing them, but in the long term the judge it'll end up better for them. But yeah, any other comments on that chapter? Cool, you can move on. This is the short chapter?
Yeah. So what's
Yeah.
that verses?
So I thought. Okay, so I'll read through all of it. That which came is the word of Yahweh to Jeremiah the prophet concerning the Philistines, before Pharaoh struck down Gaza. Thus says Yahweh, behold, waters are going to rise from the north, and become an overflowing torrent, and overflow the land as well as its fullness, the city and those who inhabit it. And the men will cry out, and every inhabitant of the land will wail, because of the noise of the galloping hooves of his valiant steeds, the quaking of his chariots, and the tumult of his wheels. The fathers have not turned back for their children, because of the limbness of their hands. On account of the day that is coming, to destroy all the Philistines, to cut off from Tyre and Sidon every ally that is left. For Yahweh is going to destroy the Philistines, the remnant of the coastland of Caphtor. Baldness has come upon Gaza. Ashkelon has been ruined. O remnant of their valley, how long will you gash yourself? O sword of Yahweh, how long will you not be quiet? Withdraw into your sheath, be at rest and stay still. How can it be quiet? Yahweh has given it a command. Against Ashkelon and against the sea coast. There he has assigned it. Alright. What happens there? In a few words, what is the whole chapter about?
Well, I know the judgments on Philistines, but like the area of Gaza, I think a lot of what's important is that God's judgment is physical. So knowing the region of like where is this located, say like Egypt or like where is all this stuff.
Yeah.
As we move around, it keeps mentioning.
Yeah, so I guess the question really is just really quickly, like
Where the waters?
No. Well, so the question would be, who are the Philistines, and like what cities do we usually think of? Like the 5 main cities
Oh,
Jerusalem is one of them.
of the Philistines.
Oh no, of the Philistines. Okay, I thought it was of Israel. My bad.
So this chapter is about the Philistines, right? It says that which came as the word of Yahweh concerning the Philistines before Pharaoh struck down Gaza, and Gaza is one of their cities.
why not Tyre and Sidon is one of the focus here, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I guess Tyre and Sidon is more of like the Phoenicians, but it's not that important. But yeah, you got Ekron, Ashkelon, Gaza, Gath, and I don't remember the 5th one right now, but yes, and so they're on the coast, right? Remember, these are the people that were constantly warring with Israel in the earlier days. Just for context. But so, what is the main message here against the Philistines? What is described?
It says that waters are going to rise out of the north and become an overflowing stream and overflow the land. Am I reading the right part, or is
Well, I mean, it's. I'm just asking for like a in a few words, like.
Structure.
I think the punishment is so much like against like the false gods. It's like the Egypt, whoever it is, they're mourning, they're sad because they lose their false gods.
Well, it seems like in a similar, I guess, mood as the last chapter with Egypt. Not only does he describe a total destruction of the Philistines, but he also describes their mourning, and actually, you really could argue that these back chapters, they really are being compared with Israel, with Judah, because with Judah, the same thing is being described, how they're like struggling to essentially save themselves, because the question is there a balm in Gilead, and the answer to that basically between all of these is yes, but basically only for Judah. So last chapter was Egypt, and he described how they were grieving, and how they were seeking to, like he said, go up and find the balm, try to save yourselves. You can't do it. I would say similarly in this chapter, he describes the same thing where he says, "How long will you?" How long will you gash yourself? It's just the idea of like these people, judgment is coming upon them, and there's no they can't save themselves. But he describes like their state of grief.
Well, and gashing yourself in that context, would that be? I mean, I guess it could just be general grief, but it could also be just the pagan practice, like offering, like how, like with the prophets of Baal, how they gash themselves in an attempt to get the attention of the gods. But
that's true. I guess in this context, I was thinking about like they were trying to get the gods' attention to save themselves. Like how long will you mourn? How long will you gash yourself?
If you remember back in, I believe it was when Elijah had the Baal prophets set up an altar, and he set up an altar, and then he said, whoever's God sets the altar on fire is the real God. And then the Baal prophets, reminded me of them cutting themselves up and bleeding to try to get Baal's attention.
Yeah, but they got desperate, and it's kind of like, to me when I read that, it's kind of the same thing. It's like they're getting desperate because they are desperately trying to save themselves from their destruction, but they can't do it.
I also love the irony in verses 5 through 7, to where it's like he's asking them, how long will you gash yourself? Like, the idea is that they are injuring themselves, appealing to their gods, trying to save them. But then it goes from them gashing themselves to saying, sword of Yahweh, how long will you not be quiet? Like, because the idea is that the judgment is coming from God. So them gashing themselves isn't going to help anything because they're trying to appeal to their gods to save them.
Yeah.
When in reality, their gods can do nothing because it's God who is actually gashing them. Right? God has got his sword out and he's just cutting them down.
Yeah.
And so it's really like, how long will your sword not be quiet? Like, withdraw into your sheath, be rest and stay still. It's like, God, maybe you need to pull back on the judgment. But then it says, how can it be quiet? Yahweh has given it a command against Ashkelon, against the seacoast. He has assigned it. He's like, okay, God's sword cannot go back into its sheath until it's accomplished what it went out to do.
Yeah.
And so like I love like this like it's almost like a domino to where it's like, hey, stop gashing yourselves. That won't help. Well, why won't it help? We're trying to get our gods to help us. Your gods can't do anything to help. Who you need to pray to is Yahweh, because Yahweh is the one who is striking you down with his sword. Okay, well, if we ask God, will he put his sword up? Oh no, it's too late. Like, his sword's not going to be put up until he's done destroying you. Like, so it's like, I love like just the progression of thought there. It's
That's true.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's poetic in like a very dark way.
Yeah.
So it seems like we're just going through all the four nations and saying, you're on notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the back half of Jeremiah. We still have a few more chapters of that. I mean, it's kind of similar to a lot of the prophets.
Well, and you'll remember that whenever God first called him, he said, you will be a prophet to the nations.
Yeah.
So it's like, in many ways, Jeremiah follows the same like progression of like the book of Acts, where it's like, it starts off in Jerusalem, but it culminates in the ends of the earth.
Yeah, that's
You know?
true.
So,
That's true.
but, yeah.
48 seems pretty long.
Yeah.
We could spend more time on this, but I would like to get through the next chapter if possible. Though, next
Well-
chapter is kind of long.
Yeah, we might have to go through it pretty quick. That's fine though, because we're just doing an overview. So,
What time are we working with?
we got 20 minutes ish. I mean, if we go a little bit over, that's fine.
Then
Yeah.
again, I guess next week we would only have to do like one chapter because then 49 would be like the
Oh, no.
final one.
No, there's 52 chapters.
49.
Oh,
yeah, we have
oh,
49,
yeah.
51, and 52.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Which 52 doesn't seem. Yeah, 52.
Long story short, I think we got time for 48.
Yeah.
All right.
If you don't get through next chapter, then it might be rough getting through the rest of it next week. Is
Yeah.
all I'm saying.
Let's do
Alright.
it.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go. Especially,
Yeah,
yeah,
let's do
some of
it.
these later ones look a little longer too. So.
Yeah. All right. We move on.
Good plan.
Concerning Moab, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel: Woe to Nebo, for it has been destroyed. Kiriathaim has been put to shame, and has been captured. The lofty stronghold has been put to shame and shattered. There is praise for Moab no longer. In Heshbon they have devised calamity against her. Come and let us cut her off from being a nation. You too, madmen, will be silenced. The sword will follow after you. The sound of an outcry from Horonaim, destruction and great destruction. Moab is broken. Her little ones have made their cry of distress heard. For by the ascent of Luhith, they will ascend with continual weeping. For at the descent of Horonaim, they have heard the distress cry of destruction. Flee, escape with your lives, that you may be like a juniper in the wilderness. For because you have your trust in your own works and treasures, even you yourself will be captured. And Chemosh will go off in exile, together with his priests and his princes. A destroyer will come to every city, so that no city will escape. The valley also will perish, and the plateau will be destroyed, as Yahweh has said. Give wings to Moab, for she will flee away, and her cities will become a desolation, without inhabitants in them. Cursed be the one who does the work of Yahweh with a slack hand, and cursed be the one who restrains his sword from blood. Moab has been at ease since his youth. He has also been quiet, like wine on its dregs, and he has not been emptied from vessel to vessel, nor has he gone into exile. Therefore he retains his flavor, and his aroma has not been changed. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I will send to him those who tip vessels, and they will tip him over, and they will empty his vessels and shatter his jars. And Moab will be ashamed of Chemosh, as the house of Israel was ashamed of Bethel, their trust. How can you say, We are mighty warriors, and men valiant for battle. Moab has been destroyed, and men have gone up to his cities. His choicest young men have also gone down to the slaughter, declares the king, whose name is Yahweh of hosts. The disaster of Moab will soon come, and his calamity has been quickly hastened. Mourn for him, all you who live around him, even all of you who know his name. Say, how has the strong scepter been broken, a staff of beauty? Come down from your glory, and inhabit the parched ground, O inhabitant of the daughter of Dibon. For the daughter of Moab, or the destroyer of Moab, has come up against you. He has ruined your strongholds. Stand by the road and keep watch, O inhabitant of Aroer, and ask who flees, and ask him who flees and her who escapes, and say, what has happened? Moab has been put to shame, for it has been shattered. Wail and cry out. Declare by the Arnon that Moab has been destroyed. Judgment has also come up upon the plain, upon Holon, upon Jazha, and against Mephaath, and against Dibon, Nebo, and Beth Diblathaim, and against Kiriathaim, Ben Gamul, and Ben Meon, and against Kerioth, Basra, and all the cities of the land of Moab, far and near. The horn of Moab has been cut in pieces, and his arm broken, declares Yahweh. Make him drunk, for he has magnified himself against Yahweh. So Moab will wallow in his vomit, and he also will become a laughingstock. Now was not Israel a laughingstock to you? Or was he caught among thieves? For each time you speak about him, you shake your head in scorn. Leave the cities and dwell among the crags, O inhabitants of Moab. And be like a dove that nests beyond the mouth of the chasm. We have heard of the pride of Moab. He is very proud. Of his haughtiness, his pride, his arrogance, and the exaltedness of his heart. I know his fury, declares Yahweh, but it is nothing. His idle boasts have been accomplished nothing. Therefore I will wait for Moab. I will wail for Moab. Even for all Moab I will cry out. I will moan for all the men of Kir-Heres. More than the weeping for Jazer, I will weep for you, O vine of Sidmath. Your branches stretched across the sea. They reach to the sea of Jazer. Upon your summer fruits and your grape harvest, the destroyer has fallen. So gladness and joy are gathered up from the fruitful orchard, even from the land of Moab. And I have made the wine to cease from the wine presses. No one will tread them with shouting. The shouting will not be shouts of joy. From the outcry at Hezbon, even to Eliale, even to Jahaz they have given forth their voice. From Zoar, even to Horonaim, and to Eglah Shadeshayah. For even the waters of Nimrim will become desolate. I will make Moab cease, declares Yahweh, the one who offers offerings in the high place, and the one who offers offerings in smoke to his gods. Therefore my heart moans for Moab like flutes. My heart also moans like flutes for the men of Kir-Heres. Therefore they have lost the abundance it produced. For every head is bald, and every beard cut short. There are gashes on all the hands, and sackcloth on the loins. On all the rooftops of Moab and in its open squares there is lamentation everywhere. For I have broken Moab like an undesirable vessel, declares Yahweh. How shattered it is. How they have wailed. How Moab has turned his back. He is ashamed. So Moab will become a laughingstock and an object of terror to all around him. For thus says Yahweh, behold, one will swoop like an eagle and spread out his wings against Moab. Kerioth has been captured, and the strongholds have been seized. So the hearts of the mighty men of Moab in that day will be like the heart of a woman in labor. Moab will be destroyed from being a people, because he has magnified himself against Yahweh. Panic and pitfall are coming upon you, O inhabitants of Moab, declares Yahweh. The one who flees from the panic will fall into the pit, and the one who climbs up out of the pit will be caught in the pitfall. For I shall bring upon her, even upon Moab, the year of their punishment, declares Yahweh. In the shadow of Heshbon, those who flee stand without strength. For a fire has gone forth from Heshbon, and a flame from the midst of Sihon, and it has devoured the top of the head of Moab, and the scalps of those who rumble. Woe to you, Moab! The people of Chemosh have perished. For your sons have been taken away captive, and your daughters into captivity. Yet I will return the fortunes of Moab in the last days, declares Yahweh. thus far, the judgment on Moab.
Okay,
All right.
so
Before we comment, I think we got to give Sean a round of applause for not only reading that entire thing, but also crushing those names. Good job, Sean.
Yeah, man.
alright, so one thing I am gonna point out here, and I might be stretching this a little bit, so call me out if I am. This reminds me of Genesis and the flood, right? So we look at how, Jeremiah God speaks through Jeremiah is kind of putting everything on notice, and it seems like Babylon is comparable to the flood back in Genesis, in a way, right? But on a much smaller scale, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're talking about how like they're being compared to like water, like sleeping.
Exactly. Yes, that's what
I can
the
see that.
analogy I'm trying to
Yeah.
draw.
Yeah, I can see that. To where like it's like this powerful water, which makes sense. Like in that especially in the ancient time, like the idea like even to this day, a huge flood, like we've seen the destruction it can cause, but
Yeah.
they would understand it even more back then. One thing I want to highlight is I was trying to figure out like why Jeremiah is moving and like on a map, like why he's going in the order he is. It seems like he's working from south towards the north in regards to like enemies, because he starts with Egypt, right? And then he goes up to the Philistines, and then he goes over to the Moabites. It's almost like he's actually kind of following the trajectory that the Exodus generation would have followed. Because like it specifically says when they left Egypt, they would have gone by the way of the Philistines, but instead God took them across the Red Sea, and then they ended up in Moab before they crossed into the land.
That's true.
And then in chapter 49, he's going to go to Ammon, which is directly next to Moab, right? Because remember, like Lot's daughters had Moab and Ammon, the two people. And then Edom is directly back south. So I don't know. Like I was trying to figure out exactly like how it's like how he's choosing which one he's going to next. It might just be random, but he's covering all the different nations around them. But
Yeah.
So long story short, he's pronouncing destruction again. That's going to be pretty much for all of these.
So it's something like he starts his way in Egypt, proclaiming to Egypt and the people to the Jews there, and then moving his way up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you ever want to just like look at the map, like it's easier to follow. I've been looking at this stuff, so I got like the map like emblazoned in my head. But there's a few things I want to highlight here. I mean, obviously,
is there one at the back of the Bible that shows it, or
in some Bibles, not every Bible, but like yours might.
Well, there's
Yours probably
all.
does. So there's 47 verses. There's obviously a lot to cover. Few things I want to highlight. First off, verse 35 and 36.
No, I don't.
He says, "I will make." This is God speaking. "I will make Moab cease," declares Yahweh, "the one who offers offerings on the high place, and the one who offers offerings in the smoke to his gods." But then he says this. Verse 36 to me is interesting.
Yeah.
"Therefore my heart moans for Moab like flutes. My heart also moans like flutes for the men of Kir Heres. Therefore they have lost the abundance it produced." That's interesting. Like the idea that God seems grieved to destroy them.
Yeah.
Even though they deserve it, and they're not his people. Like that to me is just like again, verses like that highlight how gracious and loving God is. It's like he's like in the midst of all this, he's like, y'all deserve what y'all are getting, but my heart is torn up for you.
Yeah.
And so that sticks out to me. Other thing I want to highlight, verse. Where is it?
Start like right here and then work his way kind of up.
There was one place where it
and
like
then
alliterated like crazy. It's verse 43 maybe. Oh yes.
The pit. Yeah.
Yeah, panic and pit and pitfall are coming upon you, O inhabitants of Moab. I could tell by how they translated that. I was like, I can guarantee you that also alliterates in Hebrew, because you could tell they went out of their way to pick words that alliterated, and it does. In Hebrew, it's actually they're even closer. So I just thought I'd highlight it.
Yeah.
Just because I like when the Bible uses wordplay. Fun fact: one of the books that just got delivered is called Metathesis in the Hebrew Bible. Wordplay as a literary and exegetical device. These are the nerdy books that I like to read in my free time. I've literally been wanting to buy this book for like months, and I finally just said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. Honestly, I was ordering something on Amazon, and it was like, it qualifies for Prime delivery if the order is over $25, and I only had ordered like $7 worth. I was like, well, if I want the book tomorrow, so yeah. Anyways, so in Hebrew it's pachad, va pachat, va pach. So literally it's like it's like PCHD, PCHT, PCH. So it's literally just 3 words, like just like one letter off each.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pachad, pachat, pach. And so we translate it as panic, pit, pitfall. Like I feel like that's actually pretty good. Like
Yeah.
sometimes the English doesn't really work well like that, but I thought I did a pretty good job. And I was like, okay, I just had to highlight that as like a literary thing. I like when that happens because you can understand like there's a reason why. Or let me ask y'all, rather than me just trying to answer it. Why does Jeremiah do that? Like why does Jeremiah feel the need to make it roll off the tongue? Pachad, pachat, pach. Like why does he feel the need to make that alliterate right there?
2 things. He wants to emphasize the importance of it, and he also wants it to stick, right? And if you have something rhyming and catchy like that, it normally sticks a lot easier.
But what is he making stick? Like what is the message?
Their instruction.
Yeah. It's like if there's one takeaway, like it's kind of like whenever like when you're preaching a sermon, right? Like the thing that you take away is the one-line zinger that the pastor says, right? And so usually you want that one-line zinger to be something that's like the main point. You don't want it to be just like, I don't know, like some random story, right?
Yeah. Like the 3-point sermons, like where it's panic, pit, and pitfall is like the 3 alliterating. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's kind of what Jeremiah is doing here, to where even if you ignored 46 out of the 47 verses, if the only part you remember is verse 43, you got the point. Panic and pit and pitfall are coming upon you, O inhabitants of Moab. It's like, okay, like, that explains the rest of the chapter. So it's like, hey, so what was the message to the Moabites? Panic, pit, and pitfall. Like, got it. It's like, literally, that explains all of it. And so I just want to highlight, like, stuff like that. Like, that's where there is a benefit to studying the original languages. Because in this instance, the English conveys that really well. Whereas there are some times where it just doesn't work, right? I mean, like, there's not always going to be a perfect way to capture wordplay when you translate from one language to another, and that's true for anything, right? This is one thing that's like hard for like in movies. Whenever you have like a comedy movie that relies a lot on like puns, it's really hard for them to translate those comedy movies into other languages.
Yeah.
Because the comedy doesn't land the same because the humor hinges on the wordplay.
Yeah.
And so we inherently lose that when we go from Hebrew to English or Greek to English. More in Hebrew. Like Hebrew does, like almost every chapter in Hebrew has some sort of wordplay. And so that is where I would say there is a benefit to studying Hebrew, to where you can get the main message of Scripture by studying English, like just reading in English. But if you learn some Hebrew, you'll it will highlight some of like the emphasis, I guess, right? To where it'll like highlight like, oh, like this is the main point that the person's trying to make, or like stuff like that's kind of useful. So I just want to highlight that. But anywho, what else sticks out to y'all in this chapter? It's pretty long.
Yeah. I thought there was something that stuck out to me that I wanted to mention, but I'm trying to remember where it's at because there's so many verses.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was roughly about?
Honestly, not really. I had to find it. But
Well, while you're thinking of that, little trivia fact: Nebo is mentioned a few times here. Where have we heard about Nebo before? In Scripture. It's a significant place. Nebo. No googling the answer.
You knew I was going to do that.
Yep. It's the location where Moses died.
Okay.
So, because remember, if you've read like Deuteronomy, when Moses died, the people of Israel were living in the land of Moab, right? Because he didn't bring them into the land, right? He had them camped on the edge of the Jordan River, right, facing into the land, but he didn't lead them in, right? So he was in Moab, and then God told him to go up Mount Nebo, and that's where he died. And so, whenever you see Nebo, just think Moses, death of Moses.
that makes sense. I guess the 2 things I was going to point out, whether they're that important or not is one thing, but the verse 8 and a couple of verses later on that mention the destroyer, it gives me like it invokes to me imagery of like the Passover, where like the destroyer is like going over like all the houses, like in judgment, or it says a destroyer will come to every city, so that no city will escape. I think later on he mentions the destroyer like once or twice again, but it just gives me that, like, and it kind of, I guess, like, in zooming out here, it kind of just seems like these last chapters is like one giant Passover against like all the nations, where like the destroyer is passing over all of them.
And it makes sense that the one people who have hope are the Jewish people, but it's
Yeah.
only if they place their faith in God, right?
Yeah.
It's like his judgment will pass over you if you repent. If not, then you face the same fate as the nations.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing too, that's just like a side thing, is he mentions like in verse 11, as I thought was interesting. Like he says, Moab has been at ease since his youth. He has also had quiet, or he has also had quiet. He has not been empty from vessel to vessel. I guess this is just saying like that really this whole time like Moab's basically just been like consistent. Like they've just been kind of.
I think so. I mean, like,
He has not been empty from vessel to vessel, nor has he gone into exile. Because the whole thing is like he says he's going to send them into exile.
Yeah. I think the idea is they've had a relatively chill experience, and like anytime we've seen Moab, they have been living in the land. I mean, from the time period of David up until like almost the end of Judah, they were like vassal states. Like they were like a vassal nation of Judah, but they weren't exiled from the land or anything. So like
I guess that's the main thing.
it seems like in general they've been somewhat stable as a nation. But he says not for long.
Yeah. And then just again, it mentions Chemosh several times, but he's been talked about a lot just throughout the Torah. Just as he's a very like nasty guy.
Yeah.
I think even like I think even as far back as like I don't know about Genesis, but like he's definitely mentioned like even like in the Levitical law. But
I'll look. I'm glad you brought up Chemosh because I was going to ask one thing. Verse 13, it's on the screen right there. What does it mean when it says Moab will be ashamed of Chemosh as the house of Israel was ashamed of Bethel, their trust?
Could be referring to a previous story of some kind.
It is. But what is the story?
yeah, I guess the first answer is like specifically with the house of Israel and Bethel.
So the only time Chemosh is mentioned in the Torah is in Numbers.
Oh, okay.
Woe to you, O Moab, you perish, O people of Chemosh. He has given his sons as fugitives and his daughters into captivity.
Okay.
I think that was actually
Maybe I'm thinking
is that Balaam? Hold up.
Oh, interesting.
Balaam, son of
Beor.
that guy, yeah, he's mentioned again and again.
Yeah.
Quite a
It
few-
is a different story,
He's
but
mentioned quite a few
Okay.
times in the
Yeah.
Old and New
I
Testament.
might be thinking of Moloch.
oh yes,
Yeah, I thought I saw Moloch in there somewhere. There was some reference to it.
yeah. But what's the deal with So it says Moab will be ashamed of Chemosh as the house of Israel was ashamed of Bethel, their trust. What's that about? This is mainly me trying to test y'all to make sure that we're retaining the information that we've
Bethel.
covered in Bible study, not just forgetting it.
Yeah. So what's the significance of Bethel was specifically the house of Israel? Or
Yes.
so in this case, what is the house of Israel referring to?
I want to say the Ark of the Covenant. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Okay.
No. So,
So-
think about like the last couple of books we've gone through, like Kings. When you're going through Kings and there's the house of Israel, what is the first thing that should pop in your head? Like not Jacob, not Judah, but the house of Israel. In the context of Kings,
Oh, you meant
David.
King David.
David.
No,
Yeah.
no.
like
No. So there's Judah and there's Israel. What is Israel?
Israel is like Jacob, right?
No.
Israel's
There's
not-
Judah and Israel.
Okay.
Judah is the southern kingdom. Israel is the.
Okay.
Northern.
Northern.
There you go.
Okay.
Bingo. Okay.
So in the Northern Kingdom, throughout the entire Book of Kings, what was like the main sin? Like, what was the main big thing they did?
Idolatry.
Yes, but what was the significance of Bethel in particular?
Yeah.
Like, what was the issue there? Because if you just go back to Genesis, like, the reason I'm asking this is because the context matters, right? If you just, like, whenever I think of Bethel, my immediate thought is, oh, Bethel's a great place in Genesis. Bethel is the city where, like, Jacob had a dream of a stairway going up to heaven. And so, if you think House of Israel refers to the whole nation, and you're thinking of the story of Jacob having this vision, you're going to think, wait, why is that a bad thing, right? Because it says, Moab will be ashamed of Chemosh, as the house of Israel was ashamed of Bethel. It's like, if you're thinking Genesis here, you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You have to think immediate context.
So
King.
so there's Jeroboam and Rehoboam. Rehoboam is the one who broke off from Judah and they became the Northern Kingdom. But remember, because they broke off from the Southern Kingdom, they didn't have the temple, and so he was afraid that people were going to leave the Northern Kingdom.
Oh, okay. So this is where he made the golden correct me if I'm wrong, but they were golden calf like figurines.
Yeah,
He
there's-
made one north and
Yes.
one in the south, and says
So-
you can worship these, so you won't have to go to church.
Yeah, so what was the two locations? North and south. Basically like the almost like far north and almost
Why
far
do
south.
I want to say from Dan to Beersheba? Okay.
So Dan is
that was close. So,
Yeah.
so Dan to Beersheba, whenever you see the phrase Dan to Beersheba, that is usually referring to whenever the kingdom is a whole. Because Dan is the northernmost city of Israel, of Israel as a whole, the United Kingdom, and Beersheba is the southernmost city,
Okay.
right? But once they split, then you have to, smush it
So
down.
it would be
So the northern kingdom, the northern city is still Dan,
Dan.
but the southern city would be Bethel, right? And so whenever Jeroboam set up his false religion, he put a golden calf in Dan and in Bethel. And we don't really hear about the one in Dan that much. I don't know if people just didn't go to it, or I don't know what the deal was. But the Bethel one throughout Kings is the one, and throughout a lot of the prophets. That is the one that they get the most rebuke for.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
the one where the man of God comes and speaks
Yes.
against the altar, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the main reason I want to highlight that is because if we're we're devoting several years and stuff to going through these books for a reason, and we want to make sure we're not just forgetting this stuff, right? Like there are certain things you don't have to remember. Like you don't need to remember every single city that is mentioned in this chapter,
Yeah.
but there are certain things that are worth remembering because they will shape how you interpret the text, right? If you're reading House of Israel and Bethel in the context of Genesis, it's going to change how you interpret this versus House of Israel and Bethel in regards to Kings, right? So the House of Israel was ashamed of Bethel because when it came down to it, their golden calf could not save them from the destruction that God brought upon them, right? And in the end, like Sean was pointing out, remember there was that man of God who prophesied against the altar on Bethel? Well, by the end of 2 Kings, that altar was destroyed, and Israel was destroyed with it, right? And so God's point here is that Moab will be ashamed of their God in the same way that the northern kingdom was ashamed of their God. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And so I just want to highlight that because this is where the stuff that we're studying, that they play into one another, right? And I would actually argue that this is further evidence for the legitimacy of Scripture, because it shows how Jeremiah's message and the message of Kings, they line up with one another without drawing direct attention to the fact that they line up, right? It's not like Jeremiah's like, hey, by the way, remember that one story with Jeremiah is not explaining the story to you so that you understand what's going on. He's assuming that you are aware of the historical reality of what happened in Bethel in the northern kingdom. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that would actually serve to validate the historicity and the factual reality of the events we read about. Right? There is a general understanding that we see both in Kings and in Jeremiah and in Hosea and stuff like that Bethel was associated with idolatry and that ultimately the God they were worshiping could not save them. Right? So that's just important for us to recognize.
Yeah.
So I just want to highlight that.
Important because assuming that the golden calf was probably established a couple hundred years ago at this point, right?
Oh yeah, they were established. I mean, we're in 586 BC at this point. Well, close. We're in 600 BC. The golden calf was built in 930 BC. So it's been 300, almost 400 years. So
Been a while.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. What else? There's obviously a lot more we could talk about, but
verse 17. So it says verse 16. The disaster of Moab will soon come. His calamity has quickly hastened. Mourn for him, all you who live around him, even all you who know his name. Say, how has the strong scepter been broken, a staff of beauty? I think it's interesting that even as God is bringing down his just judgment upon a people, he actually commands the surrounding people to mourn for them. Right? It's not like they I think there is this I think, well, let me say this. It highlights the complex view that we should have of judgment and justice, right? All because something is just doesn't mean that we should outright just be throwing parties in the streets because it's being executed, right? One example I think of this, I've cited this several times in Bible study, but it was whenever Ted Bundy was killed. I remember, I don't even remember what year it happened, but I don't know if I was alive or not at the time, but I know that it was on the news, and it was live streamed and stuff like that, to where he got the electric chair. Ted Bundy, serial killer. Crazy stuff. But whenever he was killed, there were literally hundreds, if not thousands of people standing outside the prison facility. And they had all sorts of signs. And whenever they announced that Ted Bundy had faced the electric chair and had died, literally all sorts of people just started like hooping and hollering and rejoicing. And it just made me feel weird because a lot of them were Christians. And it like I have very complex thoughts about that because on one hand, I would say that it is a just thing that Ted Bundy faced the electric chair as a consequence of his actions. At the same time, I don't know if it's ever directly appropriate to rejoice in death.
That's right.
To where I think we should say, yes, it is a good thing that justice occurred, but we should also mourn at the loss of life and mourn at the fact that it had to come to a point where we had to kill this person. You know what I mean? And so I just like this, that consistently throughout Scripture, I mean, there are times where God will say, mock them. Like God will he'll be a bit sarcastic and he'll say, you should mock these people because of what they're going to do. But when it comes down to it, he says, these people are going to get what they've, he says they deserve what's coming for them. But from his perspective, vengeance belongs to him. He will execute justice. It is the responsibility of those around them to mourn for them. Right? Like, you shouldn't be like, ha ha ha, Moab, you're getting what you deserve. Instead, God says, no, I'm going to do this because they need to. But even God says, my heart is, torn up over this. Yeah. He says, if my heart is torn up, then you should be mourning. You shouldn't just be like, well, we shouldn't have a cold-hearted indifference. And be like, oh, well, they're the bad guys. Guess they're getting what they deserve. It's like, no. No matter what, the loss of a life is a sad thing. Even if it was even if it was an act of justice, you rejoice in the justice, not in the death. Right? And that's a very nuanced thing, but I think that reminds us that God is, his commands are towards our heart. Right? It's not just the actions. He's literally forcing you to ask yourself every moment, why am I rejoicing right now? Why am I mourning? Is it the death or the justice that I'm celebrating? Because just the slight difference, you could have two people who outwardly they respond the same way, but inwardly one is in sin and one is not, because one is celebrating the death and one is celebrating the justice, right? Yeah. And so I just think that's important, and I just love little stuff like that to where Jeremiah doesn't draw a lot of attention to it. It's literally just probably 2 words in Hebrew: mourn for him, right? Just mourn.
And I guess you can kind of say the same thing about Osama bin Laden and all the Islamic extremism going on in Africa and the Middle East, right?
Yeah. And there's also the complexity where you can say, I am glad that person is gone because now their reign of terror has come to an end. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I should be hooping and all and be like, ha ha ha. No, it's you should also mourn that wow, this is a person who had to face the ultimate consequence of their sin. And ultimately, they're going to face even greater consequences, I guess, now that they're dead. And so, we have to keep a sober mind about that. I don't know. I just think that's important for us. We can never let our theology of justice to take away our compassion towards people, right? Yeah. Because, ultimately, we're called to love and serve people, including our enemies. And you're not exactly loving and serving your enemy if you're rejoicing in their destruction. It's well, no. If their destruction is the necessary consequence of their actions, okay, well then you rejoice in God's justice, but ultimately you pray that that they will repent, and maybe if God is willing that He will show mercy. But then if God has to bring the justice and condemnation, that's fine. But I don't know. That's an important thing for us to recognize, and I like that. Literally, Jeremiah didn't have to put that in there, but he did, and I just like little stuff like that.
Yeah. I agree. Anything else y'all want to? Like I said, there's obviously a lot more we could talk about, but anything else y'all want to bring up?
I think the last thing I'd say, verse 10. It sticks out. It stuck out to me when you were reading it. I haven't really done enough to reflect on it to give a full commentary. Yeah. So, starting in verse 9, give wings to Moab, for she will flee away, and her cities will become a desolation without inhabitants in them. So, the idea is, they're all running, just, trying to save themselves. Cursed be the one who does the work of Yahweh with a slack hand, and cursed be the one who restrains his sword from blood. So, this is almost the opposite end of what I was saying before. Because, from God's perspective, these people dying is his work. And so, he actually pronounces a curse on the person who tries to, show them mercy. Which is interesting, right? Because on one hand, he's saying, mourn for them. On the other hand, he's saying, don't show them mercy. To where he says, cursed language, that's strong language. God doesn't pronounce curses lightly. But he says, cursed be the one who does the work of Yahweh with a slack hand, right? cursed be the person who, like, he's not even saying they're not doing the job. They're just not doing it with full commitment, right? Like, they're doing, like, they're executing them, but their heart's not behind it. He says, curse on that person. And then curse be the one who restrains his sword. So, like, from his perspective, they're one and the same, right? The person who holds his sword back is the same as the person who swings his sword, but his heart isn't fully behind it. That's interesting to me. Yeah. Because on one hand, he says, mourn for them. On the other hand, don't show them mercy. It's like, again, there's complexity here.
Yeah.
To where God is saying, I'm sending you in judgment. And also keep in mind that the people who are doing this are not the people of Judah. Like, the people who are doing the work of Yahweh, it's probably the Babylonians.
Yeah.
So it's like, he's sending a pagan people to do this, and he's saying, I want you to mourn for them, but I don't want you to show them mercy. And it's just so complex. And I love that, because, like, I think it further highlights something that sets the Hebrew Bible apart from any other pagan text, right? Whenever you look at the gods of the other religions, they're very simple-minded, right? They're very black and white, and they feel very fictional because they're so simple. Whereas the God of Israel, I mean, he feels like a true person, right? To where, I mean, all of it, like, whenever you talk about, like, how we experience things, there's complexity, right? Like, you have, like, one experience happen to you, and you feel 20 ways about it.
Yeah.
Right? And you're, like, finding, like, and that's what you see right here. Like, God is, like, he's sending forth judgment, and he wants to show mercy, but he also knows he shouldn't. But he also grieves for these people, and he wants other people to grieve, but he doesn't want them to grieve to the point that they violate his law. Like, there's so much, like, character behind this, to where, again, even stuff like this, like, you have to either conclude that the God of Israel is a real God who communicated real things through Jeremiah, or you have to just conclude that Jeremiah was a really good storyteller who had, like, a PhD in psychology centuries and centuries and centuries ahead of all the other psychological discoveries at that time, right? Because, like, the way, like, I mean, just the depth of complexity to God's character and his view of the world and his view of even enemies, it's just so layered and deep that, like, either this God, like, there's truly a God who is speaking through Jeremiah, or, like, Jeremiah is literally the best storyteller ever, and he's just, like, way ahead of his time. Because, like, I mean, like, Jeremiah would have to be a genius, like a super genius, like, to come up with stuff like this.
Yeah.
Just because even when, like, I read all sorts of fantasy stories nowadays, and they have all sorts of religions, but the religions always feel so hollow, because you can tell that they're made up by the people who are just writing the stories. Whereas this God, he's a person. Like, and he, like, I don't know, like, I love the complexity there, and it's not like God's drawing attention to every single little thing. We're drawing attention to it because we're spending time lingering on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Stuff like that is just so cool to me. But I've done enough talking, and it's 9:20, so whoopsies.
You're good. It says, I wish you could talk more, but I did want to get to the chapter, and there's just too many verses to break them down. Yeah, so... But I do think it's interesting. I guess we didn't actually talk about it, but the very last verse, he says everything he's been saying, and then he just says, in the last days, I will return the fortunes of Moab.
Classic.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to spend 46 verses telling about how much I'm going to destroy you. Then at the very end, oh yeah, by the way, I'll get everything back to you at the end. It's like, wait, can we linger on that? Nope. just letting you know.
Thus far, the judgment on Moab.
Yeah. But what's cool about even that, sorry, I'm going to try to make this short. I just get excited about it. What's cool even about that is that through all of this, it's inspiring belief in Moab. Because the whole thing is Jeremiah ahead of time is saying, you're going to be destroyed. Here's exactly how it's going to go down. And through this, he's communicating how God both is the one in charge of it, and he is the one employing people to destroy them, but he also cares for them deeply. Right? Yeah. To where, like, Jeremiah's making it clear, God doesn't want to do this to you, but this is the punishment for your actions. And so, like, he's making it clear that this God loves you, even though you're not his people. And he has power over you, even though you're not his people. So he's, like, saying this God, like, that's really cool. So whenever this stuff happens to Moab, they're going to have to be like, hold on. It could be coincidence, or it could be that there's a God who genuinely spoke through Jeremiah. And even though we're not his people, he has power over us and he loves us. That's kind of cool. But then, if they follow that to its logical end, they'll also conclude, well, if he prophesied the rest of it, look at how it ends. I will return the fortunes to Moab in the last days. Now, all of a sudden, they're believing in Yahweh. Because like that's the only hope they got, right? It's like, wow, this God, he said he would destroy us, and our God said they would save us, and they didn't. He was right. Maybe he's still right. And like so like
Yeah.
even through the destruction of these foreign kingdoms, God is inspiring belief in himself, which I just think is kind of cool.
That is true. It's God's wisdom.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else y'all want to add there? Whether it's about the text or any application points or... No? Alright. Well, I guess in that case, we'll close out. Does someone want to pray us out?
I'll pray for us.
Okay.
Lord, we thank you for your servant Jeremiah. We thank you for the message that he recorded for us to study and observe and to learn. I pray that as we depart from here tonight, or as we remain here to fellowship, that our conversation will continue to be honoring to you, and that your word will be planted in our hearts like seeds that will blossom into flowers and trees and all sorts of things that will bear good fruit for you. Help us desire you, God. Help us draw nearer to you than ever before. Help us love you as you deserve to be loved. Help us live for you as you deserve to be lived for. And help us be part of the solution that this world needs. Help us be lights shining in the darkness, and help us point people towards the balm in Gilead. We love you, Lord, and we praise you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.